Yeah. All right. So in today's session, we'll look at these four major points. That is US bond yields, then the economic cycle, the 30 WMA importance of that, and the valuations, the current valuations that the market is at, and also the accumulation data. So let's start with the US bond yields. Before that, I'll just admit. Yeah. Okay. So first thing is, why are bond yields important, right? So bond yields important क्यों है? So these are inversely proportional to the market valuation. I don't know if you guys know it. So the thing is, if bond yields are at 4%, so कैसे करते हैं calculation? P क्या होना चाहिए for those that particular market is? So it is inversely proportional to the interest rates, right? For example, if the interest rates are at 6%. So how they calculate is like, this is like a very old method for calculating the P multiple. So if the yields are at 6, so क्या करते हैं 100 divided by 6, so that gives you 16.66. So 16.66 should be the P valuation for this thing. If it drops to 4, 100 divided by 4 is 25. So the lower the yields go, higher valuation the market gets, right? So this has been like a very old theory that the market kind of follows. Now, because the yields have risen so much, that is mainly due to the inflation that was caused after the crazy money printing that happened previously, right? So even in India, even elsewhere as well, if you see, for USA, it went up from I think 0.75, the yields went all the way up to 5, and after that there was a drop because people thought now the inflation has peaked. अभी मतलब the Fed will start cutting rates and everything. So उसकी वजह से bond yields had started going down, but now again it has started inching up. So two things for that. One is the economy didn't slow down as much as they had expected after such a huge rate hike, right? So the economy continued to move higher. Second thing is, because the economy is doing that well, the inflation will not drop, correct? Inflation कब drop होगा? When there is a degrowth or let's say very small growth happening. That is when inflation cools off rapidly. Although the inflation has come down, but it has not come below the levels which the Fed was wanting, that is below 2%. Although they are kind of coming closer to that, but chances are again यहाँ से it will start rising. And one more thing is, the US has printed so much money and the debt has grown out of proportion, and even now they want more money, right? So when they go to borrow, like every government, what they'll do, they'll want more money. So when they'll go to borrow from the market, right, that time, if at the bond yields are at let's say 4.5, and no one is willing to buy more bonds at that price, naturally what will happen? These guys will push the bond yields higher to make it attractive for these guys to get more money. And if that happens, then that causes a serious issue to the stock market, right? Because as the higher the yields go, the difficult it is going to get for the Fed as well, because they can't start cutting rates. There is going to be a huge mismatch, right? And usually like most of the market veterans, what they do, instead of taking a call from what the Fed is doing, they look at the bond yields and see what the market is thinking about the coming rate cuts or rate hikes. If this rate continues to move to 5 or 5.5, there is no rate cut coming in. Okay, and many people feel like, I don't know if you guys have heard that spaces of Rohit Srivastava. So there sir was saying that even something like 6.5% is also quite possible on the US bond yields, right? So if that happens, that is going to cause a major crack in the market, right? So previously also, if you look at it, like 2008, 2007, we were around 5. From there, we cracked to like almost 2 levels, right? Wherein even the markets kind of came down continuously. And in 2018, after the pretty decent run globally as well, so global economy started slowing down in 2019. That is when the rate cuts started, right? So it took only the COVID thing to kind of revive all of it because more money started coming in, right? But before that, at these levels in 2018, like the first half of 2018, when they started cutting rates, even the economy didn't improve immediately. Usually that is what happens. Like when the economy starts doing very well, they say that okay, it is okay to increase rates because they try to control inflation. But once, let's say, everything starts failing, that is when they start cutting. And also one more thing that we have to take into account is US always have been trading around that 3 to 2 mark, right? Now if the rates have gone up to 5, so until it comes around 3 and lower, we can't expect a decent economic recovery. So although the US economy has been doing extremely well, but let's say once it starts cracking, right? So immediate big rate cuts have to be done to kind of revive it. So that is why many people you would have heard saying that a big crash is coming, big crash is coming. That is because so their economy is not doing that great, right? And they are just keeping it alive by printing more money, circulating more money, right? So once it has to stop, right? At some point it will stop. We don't know whether after this election, if Donald Trump comes back, at that point it will change or whatever it is, it has to stop somewhere. So once that happens, like you are not getting easy money anymore, that is when the economy will crack big time, right? So this is about the bond yields. Although the Fed was saying that rate cut honge this year itself, but if the bond yields are rising, which they have been since the last week again, that is the reason US markets have been slowly coming down. So if the rates increase go past 5, then that is a big red flag. You will see that even the markets will have a sudden dip, right? So this is about the bond yields. And also India can't go on and cut rates. So क्या हो जाएगा, मान के चलिए US bond yields are trading at 4.5, इंडिया का bond yield अभी 6.5-7% पे चल रही है. If India starts cutting rates, let's say India comes at 5 or 5.5, and you are getting US bond yields at 5-5.5. So usually what will the investors prefer? क्या वो इंडिया में करेंगे कि US bonds लेंगे? It is going to be the US bonds, right? Yeah. So what will happen? The Indian government will not be able to raise more money because India has to borrow to keep the government running, or else जो भी उनके expenditures है उनको cover करने के लिए India is a net borrower. We are not net surplus जहाँ पे our tax collection is more than what they spend, right? So if not more money is not coming in, then that is also a serious issue. What will happen? All the infrastructure project जहाँ पे इतना प्रोजेक्ट इनको मिला है, like railways, infra, all of that, that is also going to slow down in case this happens. So that is the reason US bond agar if they increase, it causes a threat to the whole global economy as well, not just India, right? So this is one major thing. So what we can do as retail investors is have a look on particularly that particular thing, that is US bond yield. So US bond yield को अगर हम देखेंगे चार्ट पे, right? So it has been continuously moving up and higher high higher low ही बनाता जा रहा है. And also now if you see ये जो 3 वीक से जो भी गिरा था, it has covered all of that. This is a very big bullish candle, right? And it is trying to cross above the 30 WMA also. So if that happens, chances are it can even break this 5% as well. अगर वो होता है, then it seriously causes a threat to the global economy as well, right? So this is about the bond yields. Any questions on this?
One question here.
Yeah.
As the bond yields are getting increased, stock market is also rallying. So how this is happening, because economy is also rallying and the bond yield also increasing. How there is a positive correlation? Because if you see from 2022 to 2024, the yields are increasing
Increased. Correct. So
as well as the market is also increasing.
right.
So
So
how,
usually
what
that
is
is
this
what
scenario?
happens. So क्या हो जाता है, once the economy starts doing well, they start increasing interest rates to keep the inflation down. Correct? तो क्या हो जाता है, दोनों साथ साथ ही चलते हैं. बट देन आफ्टर अ पॉइंट द इकोनॉमी स्टार्ट्स टू क्रैश, आफ्टर विच ये यील्ड्स भी ये लोग मतलब नीचे लेके आते हैं टू रिवाइव द इकोनॉमी. तो वो कब होगा, दैट इज गोइंग टू बी डिफिकल्ट टू टेल. सो प्रॉब्ली लेट से इकोनॉमी भी अभी ऊपर ही जा रही है, बराबर. सो लेट से इट अगेन रीचेस 5 एंड फ्रॉम देयर लेट से द इकोनॉमी स्टार्ट्स कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग, नहीं तो रिसेशन में जाती है. Then what the governments will do is they or the central banks will do is they'll start cutting rates. तो क्यों कट करते हैं? Because the economy is already in recession. तो उसको रिवाइव करने के लिए कट करते जाएंगे नीचे 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 नीचे, राइट?
So yields and market is balancing out the money supply in the market.
Right.
Is my understanding correct?
या तो वो मनी सप्लाई मतलब दे वांट टू कीप इट एट सच अ लेवल सो दैट द इन्फ्लेशन इज अंडर कंट्रोल, राइट? ग्रोथ भी सपोर्ट करते हैं बट मेन थिंग उनका क्या होता है, टू कीप इन्फ्लेशन अंडर कंट्रोल. ठीक है. एनी
Got
मोर
it.
क्वेश्चंस ऑन दिस?
So Sandeep ji, is there any correlation with gold prices also? I mean, for the market, I'm saying.
सो यूजुअली क्या होता है सर, जब whenever the markets used to crash, right, gold used to go up, but now you have that alternative of cryptocurrency, right? So people are kind of latching on to that as well. But what I have seen is crypto kind of starts falling first and then the market crash comes in, right? So that is also a very good indicator where you can see that okay, crypto is now, like if you look at bitcoin pehle correction start hua tha and then even the markets kind of cracked. Now bitcoin is at all time high, I guess probably it can reach even $1 lakh, and then वहाँ से अगर correction start होता है then probably around that time even the markets will also start correcting. That is my thing. Gold के बारे में sir, so that is not so much correlated to markets right now. That is also again dependent on the whatever is happening globally also. अगर it is seen as a safe haven, so अगर in case war होता है and all of that, usually people try to buy more of that. But nowadays what these central banks or even the countries are doing, like China, Russia, they have been buying so much gold. Probably they want to dethrone the US dollar, but that is going to take a very long time. So what I feel sir is, even in, so gold has rallied now, correct? So even as market starts to correct, I think even gold will also correct after a certain point, because it is no longer a safe haven kind of a thing. So even gold may also correct eventually.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sandeep,
Yeah.
quick question on the bonds, right? When you look at the bonds, do you only look at the 10-year or do you also look at the 2 and 5-year? And which of those are more the ones that you are inclined towards when you look at corrections or when you look at probable hikes coming in?
So usually it is the 10-year thing that I keep looking at, Javed, because that is where the government is kind of borrowing for the long term, right? So that kind
Okay.
of tells us like these are the long term buyers who are coming in to buy. Like even the 2-year thing, that basically what we do for that inversion, we look at the 2-year
Right.
thing, right?
Okay,
Which has
got it.
actually happened. If you look at it, last June it happened. And
Correct.
historically, if you look at it, what has happened is whenever that has happened after a year, you usually see a big correction coming in.
Correct.
So if you correlate that, then by June of this year, right, we should start seeing things getting bad globally, because
Understood.
it has never failed until now. So to think
Yep.
that this time it is different, to be honest, there is nothing different in the market anytime, right? So it keeps
Yeah,
us
because
repeating the
I
same
had
thing.
the charts both of 10 and 2-year that I constantly look at. So my thing was the 2-year I gave a little bit more importance from a short-term point of view,
Short
and
term,
then
yes.
the 10-year one from a long-term. The
Right.
2-year is already showing some real bad signs.
So
All right. Thanks, Sandeep.
since we are looking at a long-term trend, like we are, so this particular top that we might make, right, that could be a decent top for next few years as well, Javed, right? Although people are now saying utna expensive nahi hai market and all of that. So that is because the economy has been continuously doing well. So when you look at
Got
the
it.
current valuation, it will look like it is decent. But then the economy has continuously rallied for the last 3 4 years. So economies go through expansion and then contraction, and the contraction is now coming, is what I feel, right? So that is
Got
our
it.
next topic, that is economy and how it is going to affect the market eventually, right? So if you go to the next slide, that is economic cycles. So every economic cycle has an expansion, it touches the peak, contraction, and then it goes even lower. Although in the long term thing, if you kind of look at it, it would be more like a linear thing. But as you know, even the market does not go up in a linear way, right? Even the markets have ups and downs, right? So same with the economic cycle also. What I feel is, so if you look after the COVID thing, we have been continuously moving up, correct? Have we ever contracted like for 2 quarters in a row? Even the Indian economy has not contracted, right? I think even the US economy probably for a few 1 quarter or 2 quarters contracted, but then even that is kind of continuously moving up. So chances are that soon we must be hitting this peak and then the contraction starts. Once the contraction starts, what happens is generally the earnings kind of go down in a very big way, right? So once the earnings start to go down, naturally what you will feel, valuation तो बहुत ज़्यादा है इसका, अभी इसको भी गिराओ. So everything starts coming down, and during that time, if the money supply also gets, let's say, contracted, then there won't be people trying to buy more of these stocks and stuff, right? Usually what happens when there is easy money, you're getting money at like 2%, even lower, what you'll do, you'll go out there, buy riskier assets, you buy Bitcoin, you buy even stocks at very high valuations, because if you are crossing 2, let's say you're getting money at 2, you're making 5, still you're making decent money, right? As let's say it becomes like 6 7%, what, and let's say the market is also cracking, at that point you'll be like, it is fine to be invested in an FD, make 6% for sure, rather than trying to play this market which is continuously falling, wherein I lose my capital as well, right? So people shift from riskier assets to safer assets when there is an increase in interest rates. Okay, so now probably that might play out, and the first thing that is going to get affected is naturally the Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is like the riskiest asset out there, and that will kind of give us a signal that the markets have also peaked. So as of now it is hitting all-time high, nothing to really worry about, but you never know, once it starts breaking, the best point would be when it breaks below its all-time high, right? So what I mean is, I'll just show it on charts as well. Right, so once it starts closing below 64,000, you would know for sure that there is some kind of a top made, and you would want to get out. People are kind of removing money from riskier assets and getting into safer ones, right? Yeah. So coming back to this economic cycle, so even the Indian economy, if you look at it, has been continuously expanding, and people are doing, I mean, every time it gets revised on the upside, right? But things are, if global economy starts to slow down, which you are already seeing signs, right? Most of the IT people in US, Canada, Europe, all of them are already struggling, right? So if people are going to kick them out, and also AI is going to play a very important role. like wherever you can replace people with AI, if that also starts happening, then it's like a even bigger revolution wherein people are going to lose jobs, and that is going to have an effect on the whole economy as well, right? So if people are not having jobs, naturally what will happen? They can't spend more. If they are not spending more, naturally the economy will also kind of slow down, right? So looking at this cycle, we are probably near the peak after continuous rise for almost 3-4 years, right? After COVID, we have been continuously moving up. So it has to contract, and we don't know whether the contraction would be a severe one or a slight one. So that only time will tell, right? So first is the US yields that is telling us that we are somewhere near the peak. Economic cycle after continuous expansion, that is also kind of telling us that we are near the peak. Third comes the 30 WMA, very important one. So whenever if you see the small cap index, so I'm looking at just the small cap index. So 2018, 2000 to 16 or 15 and to 18 was like the best time for small cap index, where it went up like crazy. So if I just show you the chart as well, right? So we went from a level of, so it actually started in 14 itself, from a level of 3000 to 9000, almost 200% gain, right? It became 3 times from to around 3000 to 9800. You can say 3.5 times, right? Once this was breached meaningfully, right, you saw a very big correction. So this was in combination with two things. That is, first was global economy also coming down. So you saw it in the interest rates as well. After 2018, interest rates started coming down. Why they came down? Because the economies were not doing well. So what I'm talking about is this particular chart, wherein after 2018, right, you started seeing this coming down. So why did this come down? Because the economies were struggling, right? So even the market struggled. Plus there was a SEBI thing saying that mutual funds should not be investing in small and or mid caps that are below the Nifty 500 and things like that. Or else, if a large cap fund was holding small caps or mid caps, they should restrain it to only 15% and things like that. So that caused a major breakdown in the small cap index, right? And after that, a very small correction. This was more like a normal pullback. But now if this happens, right, somewhere here, so why I'm pointing at this particular thing is, usually whenever it hits the 30 WMA, right, it generally takes a little time. Like even if you see here, it was continuously touching for a few times and then it started breaking. Recently also it touched it 3-4 times and then it broke down. Here also I feel something similar to that might happen, wherein if I draw it, right, so this line can go up like this and then start, and even your market might do a zigzag on this and then eventually break down. So this period, I don't know for how long it is going to stay, right? Is it going to be like this? Only time is going to tell us that. But one thing is, even in that bear market, making use of our method, we can play it. For example, यहाँ पे this was during the February Russia-Ukraine war. Strong accumulation happened, we bounce. Around these levels also very good accumulation came in, we bounce. So even in that bear phase, using the method, we would be able to make money. Okay, so nothing to really worry. Only thing is, you would not want to play long-term stocks during this continuous down cycle, because वहाँ पे क्या होता है, peak crunching happens, wherein the valuations kind of get down to like 25-30p from a 60p, right? So that kind of makes the price go down swiftly. So usually once it starts making some kind of a bottom or a higher high, higher low kind of a structure, that is when you would want to start picking your medium term bets, that is for 2-3 years. Until that happens, it is okay to kind of stay away from these medium term stocks and only concentrate on short term stocks. जहाँ पे आपको very good accumulation दिखता है, उनको आप खेलेंगे. Like even now, after a decent accumulation, there is going to be some kind of a bounce. So ये bounce जो रहेगा, so यहाँ पे ऐसा जाके ऐसा भी आ सकता है, right? So whenever this kind of bounce, we can play in the short term. So इनको हम खेलेंगे, and once we see some kind of distribution at the top, we are going to exit it and then stay in cash, right? So the thing here in once the bear market starts is you can't be playing them continuously. So once this fall was happening, you would be sitting out, and here when the strong accumulation comes in, you jump in, play this 10-15% move. Again once it starts falling, you will not be in a hurry to kind of abhi aaj kharidunga, next week kharidunga, right? You will wait for the data to improve. Once the data improves, that is when you will play it. Okay, so it's like for a few weeks you might be sitting out, and then once the data improves, you can again jump in, right? So this is how important the 30 WMA is. Whenever there is a meaningful breach of that particular thing, then generally जैसे usually क्या होता है, once it breaks down, it kind of tries moving up, और वो लाइन से अगर रेजिस्टेंस लेके नीचे गिरता है, यू विल बी 100% श्योर कि यहाँ से ये नीचे ही जाने वाला है, राइट? वेरी सिमिलर थिंग हैपेंड हियर, एग्जैक्टली सेम हैपेंड हियर. सो हियर ऑल्सो वंस इट ब्रेक्स इट मीनिंगफुली, यू नीड नॉट वरी दैट मच, बिकॉज 90% ऑफ द चांसेस कि वो वापस जाएगा, वो लाइन को क्रॉस करने की कोशिश करेगी. बट देन एट दैट पॉइंट इफ इट फेसेस रेजिस्टेंस एंड स्टार्ट्स फॉलिंग, you will know for sure that we have entered a bear market, and it is time for you to, if you have not sold your like medium term positions, book them out. और जो short term रहेंगे, only after very good accumulation you would want to get in, right? So ये bounce क्यों आते हैं? See, there are so many people who depend on the market itself for their livelihood. तो उनको भी पैसे बनाना है ना. So those kind of people usually give you a big dip, then accumulate, then push it a little higher, again distribute. Here it becomes very important for you to exit once you see distribution. अगर नहीं करते हैं तो क्या हो जाता है, the stock will go even lower than your buying price. In the bull market it is okay if you do not exit on a small distribution, because the trend is up, you will again be in the money after a few weeks or few months. Okay, so this is why the 30 WMA line is very important. It recently touched that and bounced. All right, so once it starts going below that, you will know for sure that we are in a meaningful correction or a bear market. All right, so this is very important, the 30 WMA line. Any questions? Yeah ma'am.
So does this apply to the large cap index as well?
Yes. So even if you look at the large caps, so if you look at Nifty, so Nifty didn't have such a meaningful correction, but still it had a decent one. So if you look at it here, it did correct a little. After that, it has been continuously moving. It is quite far from that particular line, right? When compared to the small cap index, which recently touched it, because the move in Nifty is like a recent move that has come in, right? So even here it is going to work, ma'am, but Nifty is not going to fall as much as small cap index. Small cap index, you don't know at what level it will go back down, right? But in Nifty, after let's say 20-30% correction, usually money will start coming in. And also during a correction or a bear market, what happens? People move from, like I said, move from riskier to safer assets, right? Even people who want to be continuously invested in the market will move away, like the seasoned investors will move away from a small cap kind of a stock to a large cap. And usually whenever bull markets start, ma'am, what happens? First, the large caps become expensive, right? The rally would be in large caps. Then the larger mid caps and mid caps, they kind of rally and become expensive. The third one would be the small caps. So that is how usually money flows.
Okay, so in the bear market, once the bear market starts, whenever it starts, so for a large cap, what would be the strategy? Like to play it long term in that case?
Yeah, usually large caps, what I suggest people is large caps, whenever you are playing, you would play for the long term, right? You don't want to play large caps for short term because they don't give you like 30-40% return anyways. You are trying to build a fund for after 10 years, 15 years, you want that fund, right? So
Yeah.
you are usually building that, and whenever there is a meaningful correction in large cap, it makes sense to kind of do a bigger SIP. Let's say you're doing a monthly SIP of 5k. Let's say you see a Nifty cracking 20%. So at that point, what I would recommend is, if you can afford it, increase the SIP to 10k, that is double it. So what will happen is you end up buying the same thing at a much lower price and you get more units. So one thing is doing a continuous same SIP, right, every single month. That will result in like 12-13% kind of returns, ma'am. But if you invest more during a big drop, although the return might be 12-13% for the fund, if you look at a 5-year, 10-year period, but if you are increasing your this thing when there is a cut of 20-25%, naturally you are going to beat even that fund itself, correct? Because you are putting in more money when the units are cheap.
Right.
Right, so that you can do, ma'am. So nothing to be worried. Let's say you are a long-term large cap investor, nothing to be worried. Just make sure that whatever money you have removed from, let's say, the small caps or whatever it is, kind of buy more of these large cap units is what I would say.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So Sandeep sir, is there a possibility that while the small caps take a pause or a dip, whatever, the heavyweight index like the Nifty, Bank Nifty, they start running?
So that is going to depend on whether there is panic in the US market. So Nifty is very dependent on how the US market is performing, right? So in the sense, if US market is breaking down 2-3% every single day, naturally Nifty is also break, right? Small and mid caps, most of them, like the smaller mid caps, those are very India specific. अगर इंडिया में अगर कुछ ये हो, something is not right, then they might crack. Nifty will not crack so much, right? Because in Nifty it is run by FIs and DIs, right? And usually in such cases money वहाँ पे shift होता है. But if there is a global panic, everything will fall.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Right? Yeah. Anyone asked something? Yeah, Randir.
सर जैसे आपने बताया एक्यूमुलेशन डेटा वगैरह जो इसमें अच्छा हो अपन से प्ले कर सकते हैं. रिसेंटली जैसे मान्यवर में डेटा बहुत अच्छा था लेकिन फिर भी स्टॉक कंटिन्यूसली मतलब नीचे ही जा रहा है सर. तो वैसे स्टॉक को कैसे प्ले?
टॉक अबाउट इट रणधीर बाद में, ठीक है?
ओके ओके ओके.
चिराग सर.
Yeah, Sandeep ji,
Chirag
I mean,
sir,
I've
I can't
asked
hear you at
I've-
all.
you can't hear me?
Little better.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just move.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm just sitting next to my laptop now. Anyway, so I asked you this question on Twitter also. So you had mentioned that you'll be completely out. You're mentioning that as a trader, or like for example, I have a substantial SIP running across mutual funds and direct equity, right? And which I invest monthly on 10th or 12th, whichever is the first working day.
Right.
And so what I wanted to understand from you is you had mentioned that you will be out, except for short term. And while you mentioned to Jamini here that to continue to invest, I just wanted to hear your perspective of entering and exiting. I mean, does that make sense? For example, I'm happy to share this idea with others. So I am investing in a company called Max India. Okay. I've been investing for a fairly long time now. My average price has moved up to 149. Currently, it's I think about 200. And so, I mean, I'm just giving you an example. My plan was to keep sort of investing in this through for the next few years, right? But it is it's a small cap for sure. It's a micro cap, in fact, and it's not even profit making. Okay. So what is your view here? I mean, is it that exit and then we'll take a call when things become better, or it's very possible that the 200 may fall back to the 80 or something. That's what it was
Right.
a few months ago. But just wanted to hear your view on this.
Okay. Yeah. So, sir, why I said that I don't usually be in the market for a long term is since I'm doing it full time, right? I would know for sure, looking at the data and also these moving averages, when it is going to reverse, right? So, for me, even if I'm saving like a 20-30% cut, I'm saving myself from that. It, I mean, over a period of time, it becomes substantial, right? So
Right.
that is the reason, sir. But many of them are like doing a very small SIP continuously. So for them, it makes sense to be invested, and they don't want that money now either, right? Because I'm able to kind of time it, I'm not doing some mutual fund or an SIP for a long term. If I was doing that, then definitely I would still be invested in the market, sir. I won't be kind of taking out everything from especially the large caps.
Right. So only because you are like a full-time trader,
Yeah.
you are
Right.
trying
And
to.
also, my holding in large caps is next to nothing, sir. It is usually the small caps or let's say the smaller mid caps wherein I kind of play, right? So for me, and they correct quite a lot. Whenever there
Right.
is a bear market, right, they drop like 40-50%.
Right.
So to be a long term investor in that will not actually make sense.
Also, I mean, we all know this, but bears reminding that a 40% cut needs a 90%
Correct, sir. Yeah,
upside
yeah,
to recover.
exactly. So something that falls 40% would want to go back up 90% to kind of recover or come to the same price. So
Same
if
level.
I'm able to kind of even sell 10% from the top, I would be saving myself from a pretty decent this thing, and I can buy more of that again once it moves into stage two.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
yeah, sir.
So, incidentally, now that you mentioned stage two, I had shared a screener with in the chat. I found that, I mean, I wasn't. I mean, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now.
Yes,
I
sir.
hadn't paid too much attention to stage two, but last 7 months I've started paying attention to stage two. So it turns out that it's a stage two. You can write a screener for it, and it
Right.
turns out that the moment the stock enters into a stage two and the market is in a bull market, that is important. It's a almost no-brainer to enter the stock. I mean, you
Right.
can actually screen for it,
Yeah.
and and of course your other things about accumulation and also core business, etc. If you pay that mind, it's almost automatic. It can almost be algorithmized.
Right.
I feel that you should kind of uh, try and say more about that. I mean, I'll send it to you. I'll send you that screener
Sure,
separately.
sir. Yeah. So stage two is like a very good thing, especially if you're a medium term kind of a investor, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Just pick those stocks if they are fundamentally decent and they give you like 50, 60 minimum in that run, right? If not more. Many of them go on to give you like 2x, 3x, 4x also. So I'm pretty big fan of that as well, sir. Like the stage two, right? Whenever stocks enter, sometimes even in the bear market, you kind of get those as well, sir. So those would be like even better. Like you would know for sure that okay, now market is kind of going down, but this stock maybe they're doing well, especially the smaller stocks. What will happen is they don't have so much effect if the economy is slowing down a little because their size itself is so small, they can still continue to grow if the demand is there, right? So even such stocks in a bear market, if you can find them, still it makes sense to kind of go out there and take a trade in them. Yeah, go on, Sonu. You had a query?
सर अबाउट स्टॉक
स्टॉक के बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे अभी
यस
ये
सर
मैं
यस
हाँ
सर
जी या विक्रांत
हाय हाय संदीप भाई
हाय विक्रांत
Sandeep bhai, so obviously again, like your timing was spot on, even this time, like when you said that you are going into cash, and at the same time the market breadth was also deteriorating, right?
Right, right.
And like your timing proved to be absolutely correct. So, like, have you kind of studied, the correlation between your method and market breadth and like kind of come to a conclusion that when certain percentage of stocks go below 20 EMA
Right.
and plus the accumulation distribution data also kind of goes down, that is when the market kind of seems to top out, because this is something that I noticed
Right.
that whenever this 20 DMA के नीचे जब 50% of the stocks go, plus the data also kind of comes down at that time, that is where we see like the market kind of making like a lower high, and that's
Right.
when like like a lot of stocks enter stage 3 as well. So have
Okay.
you kind of also like come to such a correlation?
नॉट रियली विक्रांत, तो वैसा वाला मैंने किया नहीं है. बट वॉट आई हैव सीन इज इवन आफ्टर दैट द अक्यूमुलेशन माइट इम्प्रूव ऑल्सो. बट लाइक वी नो,
Right.
जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होता है वो टॉप पे ही होता है, राइट? सो here why I was kind of bearish was I was not seeing fresh funds kind of coming into the market, right? जो अगर fresh fund नहीं आएंगे market में, so who will buy it, who will push it higher, right? It need not be always distribution. Sometimes if the money supply that is coming into those stocks kind of pauses or let's say becomes very low, वहाँ पे भी आपको एक decent correction देखने को मिलता है, but that won't be like a start of a bear market. Now what I feel is something like April 22 or April 22 में जो distribution आया था ना, वैसे वाला distribution अभी आना बाकी है, and after that you will see a meaningful kind of a bear market coming in. But this one was due to no more money kind of coming into those stocks, and even if little selling kind of comes in from retail or even those PMS guys, then it would definitely lead to a decent pullback. So that was my theory. But since you asked, and even one more student also asked me that ये मार्केट ब्रेथ को अगर हम कंपेयर करते हैं ना दोनों मिला के, इवन कन्विक्शन विल गो हायर. सो इवन आई विल स्टडी दैट विक्रांत की मतलब market breadth thing.
Because I have noticed this correlation. So
Yeah.
like to just simplify it, जैसे ही 20 EMA के नीचे 50% stocks जाते हैं, so I've seen like a decent pullback coming in, and
Right.
that time the accumulation distribution data is also very low, the number of stocks which have high accumulation.
Right.
तो वो काफी लो होता है, and any which ways right now like a lot of stocks are in stage 3, plus the market have been choppy from from Jan, like
Right.
मतलब काफी 20 EMA के नीचे काफी breach हुआ है index भी.
Correct.
So, and plus like you said the money is not flowing in, so like are we seeing signs of stage 3 in most of the stocks, and that's why also like your exits are timed that way?
So mine was basically because of whatever stocks fundamentally I liked विक्रांत. मतलब जो अभी वैल्यूएशन भी ठीक ठाक है वैसे वाले stocks को if I was looking at them, and even with the ones with accumulation, those were already making a lower high lower low. तो वैसे में मैं खेलूँगा ही नहीं ना, first thing. So although I
One
am seeing
question here,
accumulation in
like
them
individual
because
stocks, like let's say you have 10 positions right now. So do you just exit all of these stocks at once, or like do you wait for a climax stop to happen, or like distribution to happen in that stocks specifically to like exit that stock?
so usually it is either वो distribution होने के बाद I would have sold them, or else let's say they were making higher high higher low. अगर वो fail होता है, it breaches the previous low that it had made, then I am going to exit it. So either one of them, if that is hit, right विक्रांत, so मैं क्या करता हूँ उनको exit कर देता हूँ वहाँ पे.
So आपका ट्रेलिंग स्टॉप लॉस आपके सारी पोजीशन में हिट हो गया था तभी जब आप 60% कैश में आ गए थे या जो भी है.
Yeah, so few of them were that, few of them were after distribution, and also when such a phase comes in, right, usually if I'm taking short term trades, वो सिर्फ 8-10% के लिए लेके I would have exited them, because if the whole accumulation is not that great, then वहाँ पे क्या होता है, it can fall any time, right? So उस समय में even a 10% kind of a gain is decent enough, I kind of book out. Even if it goes higher later, then I don't care, because the market breadth itself is not that strong.
Thank you so much, bhai.
Thank you, Vikrant. Yes, Monica.
हाँ जी सर, गुड आफ्टरनून सर। ये स्ट्रेस टेस्ट ऑफ म्यूचुअल फंड्स, सर समझ नहीं आया क्या रिलेशन है इसका स्टॉक मार्केट के साथ?
मैम इवन आई डोंट नो ये क्या होता है, उतना तो फाइनेंस
Can I
उतना
can I mention?
या चिराग सर.
So, मैम ऐसा है कि सेबी and AMFI periodically tell mutual funds कि if you need to exit your position, how quickly can you exit it? Right? This is for mutual funds because mutual funds are a trust. They are trust of customers' money. So ये जो stress test का logic ये होता है कि आपने जो पिछले कुछ हफ्ते महीनों में जो लिक्विडिटी देखी है उस बेसिस पे अगर आपको एग्जिट करना था, let's say you see a 100% run on your fund, right? 100% of your customers want to exit. How quickly can you exit it? Right? So that is there is a prescribed norm for it. The problem with this, however, is कि जब सर्किट लगने लगेगा, especially small and mid cap में, तो all these stress tests will fail because आपको मार्केट में लिक्विडिटी नहीं मिलेगी, बायर ही नहीं होगा, तो आप एग्जिट कैसे करोगे? Right? So, but it's good for mutual funds to do it and reveal it so that at least not everybody understands this, but at least those who understand, they can understand the risk they face better. That's all. That is what the meaning is. I hope I'm clear.
They are virtually doing it or really doing it in the stock market?
Virtually. There, this thing is that basically आपको प्रोजेक्ट करना है कि अगर ऐसा हुआ,
Okay, dummy kind they are doing.
हाँ, वो it's like it's not, हाँ डमी कह लीजिए आप, प्रोजेक्शन है मैम, डमी भी नहीं है, प्रोजेक्शन है, क्योंकि आप लिक्विडिटी प्रेडिक्ट नहीं कर सकते मार्केट में क्या होगा, क्योंकि कल जैसे अगर let's say something happens, let's say war breaks out between US and Russia, तो आपको लिक्विडिटी नहीं मिलेगी क्योंकि सब लोग बेच रहे होंगे, कोई नहीं खरीदेगा, राइट? तो आप बेच रहे हैं सब, तो लिक्विडिटी नहीं मिलेगी, तो वो स्ट्रेस टेस्ट का कोई मतलब नहीं है एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, बिकॉज आप एग्जिट नहीं कर पाएंगे. I'll give you another example, slightly different. That is, there was this bank called Silicon Valley Bank. It was very famous amongst at least Indian expatriates, right? So they had passed the stress test. Basically, उनका था कि भी 25% अगर आपको 25%, if you had a run on your bank of 25%, will you be able to furnish the liquidity to furnish to return the money of 25%? But वो क्या हुआ, that some Silicon Valley billionaire said कि ये बैंक डूबने वाला है, तो 25% की जगह 50% turned up कि भाई हमको दे दो हमारा पैसा है, हमको दे दो. अब वो I mean for different reasons, G-Secs and all, they held वो, basically they couldn't, so there was a bank run and it collapsed. So in normal times it is all okay, but when panic sets in, so it has no meaning. But this is just to give you a sense that there are people who are concerned about this, and therefore this is a way to have a measure of that concern. I hope I'm clear.
हाँ, ओके, थैंक यू सर. दूसरा ये इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड का सर, जिसका भी नाम आया है जिस कंपनी का, उसका क्या इफेक्ट होगा सर?
If there was one more point जो मैं ख़त्म कर दूंगा, then we can discuss the stock specific thing. So usually जब bull market start होती है, most of the fundamentally decent or even the good ones are trading at a reasonable valuation. So ये reasonable valuation, how do we get that? Usually what happens in a bear market, people become so pessimistic that they sell it at such cheap levels at the end कि मतलब आपको 20-25 पी में मतलब बढ़िया स्टॉक मिल रहा है, right? So I remember most of these stocks, right? Like if you look at alkylamines ले लीजिए, नहीं तो even पॉलीकैप, ये सब, और इवन KEI, ये सभी स्टॉक्स जो थे 15 के 20 के पी में आपको मिल रहे थे इन 2019. वाई? बिकॉज फ्रॉम 2016 to 2018 वी सॉ अ मेजर पुल बैक इन दीज small and mid caps, right? After that, no one wanted these kind of stocks, right? Although they were growing at 15%, profit bhi grow ho raha tha at 15%, still the PE was reasonable, right? Now also maybe we will not go back to 15-20 PE, but at least we'll go back to 25-30 PE in the bear market that you would see. So wahan se it makes sense to kind of start a bull market, because bull market कैसे start होता है? On optimism that earnings are going to expand and along with that you have a P re-rating which kind of helps you make multi-bagger gains. So अभी P re-rating का जगह ही नहीं है because we are already at 60-70 P. तो इसको ना you can't make it like 140 P, right? No one is going to buy it there. So when the valuations are already stretched, although many people are saying जो Nifty 500 का small cap 100 का companies है वहाँ पे the valuation is still at like 23 P, which was the same at even 3-4 years ago. So that is correct because even the economy has done well. Now if the economy contracts, तो इनके definitely जो profits है वो गिरेंगे. So the P will start looking much higher. So वहाँ पे correction आएगी. And during that correction क्या होता है, जैसे FOMO रहती है वैसे panic भी रहता है. People start selling it at much lower valuation because they just want to get out of the market. That would be the correct time to kind of start buying most of these stocks for a 2-3 year 4 year kind of a horizon where you would want to make like 2x 3x kind of gains. यहाँ से to make 2x gains is going to be very difficult. Although people, I've seen so many of them putting like next 5 years 10x. मतलब जो stock already 10x हो गया वो बोल रहे हैं next 5 साल में और 10x होगा from these current levels. That is absolutely madness, and that two people with like 15-20K followers are doing such nonsense. तो वहाँ पे क्या हो जाता है 8-9 साल में कोई भी स्टॉक जो मान के चलिए इवन 500 करोड़ का है वो 50,000 करोड़ का स्टॉक थोड़ी बन सकता है 8-9 साल में, राइट? अनटिल एंड अनलेस दे आर मेकिंग सम मिरेकल स्टफ, राइट? तो वो तो नहीं कर रहे हैं कोई, राइट? So in that case it is very difficult, especially at the current valuation. Most of the micro caps that you see जो भी 500 करोड़ का था वो already 3,000 करोड़ 4,000 करोड़ 5,000 करोड़ का हो गया है in the last 3-4 years, right? And they are trading at 35-40 kind of a P. So वहाँ से to kind of again go up 10x because अभी क्या हुआ है P re-rating के साथ साथ earnings expansion हुआ है. तो from 40 P to make it a 10 bagger तो अर्निंग्स 5 साल में 10 गुना बढ़ना चाहिए बिकॉज यू कांट हैव अ पी री रेटिंग फॉर दैट फ्रॉम 40 to like 80 2 times. वो भी मुश्किल है वहाँ पे, राइट? सो फॉर द अर्निंग्स टू गो अप 10x it does not make sense at all, right? In the next 5 years for a 5,000 crore company is what I'm saying, until and unless there is some miracle that is happening, right? So looking at all this, valuation भी stretched है because we are currently ये जो economic cycle है यहाँ पे we are at the peak, right? So here once the contraction comes naturally P kind of compresses and the earnings kind of compresses making the P look higher. So that is when the correction will also hit. And looking finally at the data, तो ये जो data है 15th वाला I was not aware there was some FTSE rejig also that happened, because of which there is a little bump up in this thing. But looking at all this, it is not as great as what we saw in March of 24. Naturally, right? Because SEBI भी बोल रहा है do not invest. And like we were telling you, ये जो major correction आया था that was because of SEBI जो इंटरफियर किया था विद द स्मॉल एंड मिड कैप स्टॉक्स, जहाँ पे उन्होंने स्ट्रिक्ट किया था दैट यू कांट बाय दीज इन योर पोर्टफोलियोज. समथिंग वेरी सिमिलर टू दैट इज हैपनिंग. सो इफ द करेक्शन कम्स इन इट कैन बी फॉर quite some time. My thing is it won't be like a 2-year period because India is actually doing pretty well, right? Maybe for a 9 months 1 year kind of a bear market रहेगी. So in that we don't know how much it is going to fall, but जो भी वहाँ पे आएगा and let's say reasonable valuation पे if you're getting decent quality stocks which have done capex and all, it makes sense to kind of buy them from let's say 12,000 or whatever level we touch, right, in the small cap index. वहाँ से or even 10,000 or 9,000 इसका ही retest from there in the next 5 years after that. ये जो मतलब fall होने के बाद 2-3 साल में you will make tremendous money at that point because you will see more participants also coming in, and also India will outshine the world at that point because once global economy starts growing, let's say at 4-5%, India can easily surpass even 10%, that is double-digit GDP growth. So when that is going to happen, naturally your small mid-cap stocks will kind of fly because उनका earnings expansion भी है 25% हर quarter, ऐसे मतलब year on year I'm talking 25-30% kind of growth you will easily see. So at the current point not be that aggressive and play, because the conditions are not in your favor. So wait for a little while. You can be in FDs, नहीं तो जो long term के लिए आप अगर SIP कर रहे हैं in large caps, that you can continue. जितना dip आता है उतना ज़्यादा buy कीजिए वहाँ पे units, so you'll anyways benefit in the long term. So these are the points that I wanted to cover. So अगर इसमें कुछ doubt है, then you can ask me, or else I